WWL Weather, sponsored by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
10 o'clock on this Wednesday morning. Good morning to you. I'm Brandon Walker as we do continue to track the very latest with that system moving from Texas. Breaking news right now at 10 o'clock. It is now the first named storm of this hurricane season. Let's get straight to meteorologist Peyton Malone. He's got the latest.
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, and this is the big update. Hurricane hunters were in there this morning. They found a well-defined circulation with showers and storms firing around the center, and that's what triggers this thing getting a name. Now, it does not change anything in the forecast. You can see Tropical Storm Arthur, the first named storm of the 2026 season. It's sitting about 40 miles east-northeast of Port O'Connor, Texas. That's going to be south of Houston right there, and you can see the banding features well displaced from the center, so it is still very a lopsided and sheared system. No big changes to the thinking on the forecast track. We're going to move this tropical storm right up the Texas coast, close to Galveston here later this evening, and then it will quickly begin to open up into an open trough this evening and into tonight. All this heavy rain is what we're mostly still concerned with in southeast Louisiana as it moves our direction. Now, we are getting more confident, I will say, on where the heaviest of the rains could set up later on into tonight. Now, there does remain uncertainty on who's going to see the most, but here's our latest thinking. As we go through today, you can see a bulk of the rain is sitting off of our coast. We'll start to see some rain creep in later in the afternoon, and then once we get into the evening, we'll start to see some of those heavier downpours. I really do think there's going to be a sharp gradient between little rain and a ton of rain. And so this is what we're going to watch as we head into this evening and to tonight. Notice once we get towards midnight or so, it is possible you go from New Orleans into the north and you get big time rains. In New Orleans into the south, maybe we're missing the worst of it. This is one of those fine details we aren't quite locked in on yet, but we're noticing some trends that anywhere in this dividing line from New Orleans and to the north is where the biggest rains are likely going to be as this tropical storm or the disturbance moves inland later on tonight. And we're going to be watching for heavy rain overnight. So my current thinking is really from the city of New Orleans, maybe just north of the city and onto the North Shore is looking like the highest threat for flooding tonight. It's going to be a close call, though, and I don't want to give us any clear here in New Orleans because it's going to be a maybe 5-mile difference between a lot of rain and very little rain. So this will be something to be aware of overnight and into tomorrow morning. I think widespread 3 to 6 inches, but there will be a couple of spots that maybe are closer to 10 inches. As we wake up tomorrow morning, we very well could have flooding somewhere in South Louisiana, from Baton Rouge to New Orleans to the North Shore and even into South Mississippi. That is the latest forecast right now as we track now Tropical Storm Arthur. We've got a lot of discussion to have here, Brandon. I know we're going to be doing that here coming up on our streaming.
All right, Peyton, yes, and that is our programming note to you. For those of us who are joining us on WWL Louisiana, we are going to leave you and return to our regularly scheduled programming. But for those of you who are watching us on WWL Plus and our WWL app, we're going to invite you to continue with us as we do have special coverage here, tracking the very latest on what is now Tropical Storm Arthur. Looking throughout the area, if you are in the New Orleans metro area, as we've told you throughout the morning, as about 30 minutes ago, there are opportunities for you in the city of New Orleans to get sandbags filled. Got a full list of you for those locations at WWLTV.com, but they're really in line by your council district. That is the case with other parishes too, as we do prepare for this storm. Again, as I mentioned, we're going to continue with streaming on our app, and those of you who are on WWL, we will see you live at noon.
This has been a severe weather alert from WWL Weather, sponsored by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
And good morning to you at 10:04. If you are staying with us here on the WWL app, I am Brandon Walker as we do continue our special coverage of what is now confirmed to be Tropical Storm Arthur, set to bring what is being referred to as a rain event to parts of southeast Louisiana. Looking at it primarily tonight as our forecasters do continue to track the very latest. So with that, let's get straight to meteorologist Peyton Malone, who's got the very latest here along with But Peyton, as you were saying, it's still going to be the same forecast as far as the rain is concerned.
Yeah, you know, we were saying Arthur or not, the forecast doesn't change, and that rings true at this moment. And by the way, hurricane hunters, they're still in there sampling this. It's a very interesting storm. They found the center of the tropical storm right there off the Texas coast, saying there is somewhat of a well-defined circulation with a few storms around it. That's enough for them to classify this as a tropical storm. But I want you to notice where all the big rains are, and where you're looking at here are high cloud tops that are producing some very, very heavy rain, well displaced from that center, which is right there. That is what we're going to be watching as we go through the remainder of the day. And we're going to have to watch and see how it evolves as it moves towards South Louisiana. Some of us tonight are going to get a lot of rain. Others are going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, where's the rain? And that's how these types of things go. Some are going to get a lot. Others are not going to get so much. But unfortunately, I can't get as detailed to tell you what neighborhoods are going to get what here. So we've all got to prepare for this rounds, this least threat for some heavy rain as we go into tonight. So if you are just joining us here at 10:05, they named this thing officially with the 10 a.m. update. The tropical storm is a minimal tropical storm that has winds sustained at 40 miles per hour. But again, it's not about the winds with the system. It's about the big time rains that are going to be moving into southeast Louisiana and really a big chunk of South Louisiana later on tonight. So here is that 10 a.m. advisory that just dropped. We are seeing some wind gusts closer to the Freeport area there off the Texas coast, maybe closer to 50 miles an hour, but that's where all the heavy rain is that's sitting south of the Louisiana coast this morning. The official track, really, again, no big changes here. All the rain's going to stay east and even well east of that official center line of the low pressure or of the tropical storm. So all this rain is going to be pivoting up towards Louisiana as we go through today. In fact, I don't even think we're going to see much rainfall in Louisiana this morning and even this afternoon. There'll be a couple of showers here and there, but it's not going to be as widespread. So what we're going to watch here, and I can tell you by looking at this right now, that this model, it seems to be struggling with the tail end feature of all the moisture down here. So when I look at satellite right now, it shows a big burst of storms right here. This model doesn't seem to think there's a whole lot there. So we got to take this with a grain of salt. And this is one of those tricky things when you're trying to forecast, and you got to use more than just models, but they're great tools that we use. So let's time it out because I think the timing is doing pretty good. We'll have a couple showers near our coast later this afternoon. The heaviest of the rain likely is going to start up later on in the evening. And it's possible there's more development than what this model is showing. And that would be my concern for a bigger rainfall threat across southeast Louisiana. So again, we are under the impression that someone tonight's going to get a lot of rain. We're just trying to figure out exactly who. So as the rain moves in late tonight, it'll be with us through the overnight hours. It'll be with us all the way into tomorrow morning. And look at this. Some of these bands of rain are not going to be moving all that much. And this is when the rain could really start to add up. So the flooding threat is probably going to be highest after midnight and before sunrise tomorrow, and maybe even up until sunrise tomorrow. So before you get out on the roads for your Thursday morning drive, I need you checking in just to make sure the roadways you're trying to get to aren't flooded. Leah will be here. I'll be here. Bree, Brandon, we'll all be here keeping you up to date starting at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning at the latest, and we'll be here tracking it. And as it slowly lifts away through Thursday morning, we'll be watching some of these feeder bands on the tail end to see exactly what they're going to do as well. So the flood risk, it is there for everybody. The red corridor is where we are really needing to watch the forecast closely. I went ahead and drew this little dashed white line where a lot of our high resolution models are honing in on our biggest rainfall totals. But again, things could still shift around some. So if I'm in New Orleans, if I'm in Houma, Baton Rouge, Hammond, Picayune, Slidell, Poplarville, even over in South Mississippi, I'm going to prepare tonight before I go to bed like I'm going to get big time rain. I'm going to park my car somewhere high and dry. I'm going to make sure I've got my weather alerts on just in case the rain comes down heavy, and should, God forbid, you need to take action, you can. So again, the rainfall totals, it's going to be really interesting to see how this sets up. I think there's going to be a sharp line across the area where there's very little rain and there's a ton of rain. What you're seeing in these white colors is over 15 inches. Now that's going to be very isolated if it happens, but anywhere in the pink area could be over 10 inches, and that certainly could be more widespread. So this high resolution model has really been locking in on the Northshore and Baton Rouge, but I've seen a couple models that push it a little closer to the river parishes. And again, if this thing just is a little bit different, well, then it pushes that higher rain total further and further south. Unfortunately, you do have to plan for either one of these scenarios to happen with this. And again, some of these rainfall totals are going to be quite large. And we've seen this. This model updates every single hour. Every time it updates, it shows some impressive rain somewhere across southeast Louisiana. So that's our rain threat, primarily late tonight and early tomorrow morning. I do want to mention we've got tropical storm warnings that are currently in effect for Morgan City and back through St. Mary Parish. That's the dividing line on where you're going to see wind gusts probably 40 to 50 miles an hour. Now, we are going to have stronger winds here in the Louisiana or on Terrebonne and Lafourche and down into Plaquemines Parish, but they're going to be more like 30 to 40 miles an hour. That doesn't meet the threshold for a tropical storm, so therefore we don't have warnings. But there's going to be gusty winds all along the Louisiana coast, and we're going to see what gusty winds well inland too, up to maybe 20 to 30 miles an hour. So I want to quickly show you our precision cast with our winds because I think it's doing a pretty good job here actually. This afternoon we've got winds gusting near 30 miles an hour near the coast. Notice out where the tropical storm warnings are, you're getting some wind gusts 40 to 50, even over 50 miles an hour in some of those rain bands. Going into later tonight, we've got gusty winds. That'll continue tomorrow morning. You're not talking about anything that's knocking out widespread power or anything like that, but it will be blowing in. If you live anywhere near bodies of water, the water is going to be very choppy. And we're going to start to see a little water rise. So the National Hurricane Center, they don't have any storm surge warnings or watches out because we're not expecting significant surge, but we are going to see higher than normal tides. I've got tides at 1 to 3 feet higher than normal in Lafourche, Terrebonne, and in Plaquemines Parish. They do get a bit higher once you get to St. Mary Parish in this darker green. I've got 2 to 4 feet. Foot higher than normal tides. That also includes Marsh Island and all the way back to Sabine Pass there once you get towards the state line. So at the end of the day, how this is going to play out, it's now Tropical Storm Arthur. It'll have a name and it's going to produce rain. And that's essentially the story here. Our highest flood threat will be later tonight. I think the flood threat is going to be most elevated between midnight and let's say the morning hours, 6, 7, 8 a.m. It could be during your drive time. We're also going to be dealing with those gusty winds and some minor coastal flooding, and then things will start to taper off once we get into our Thursday afternoon. But Thursday morning, we still could be tracking some very heavy rainfall, and then we'll get back into our more normal summery pattern. I want to leave you with a look at the 7-day forecast here, because once we get past Friday, there'll be some downpours Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for Father's Day weekend. It's back to just hot and muggy, and there'll be a couple of storms around. So again, the main messaging tonight, some of you are going to get a lot of rain, others will miss it, but we got to plan like we're all going to get it just in case. There is naturally some uncertainty in a forecast as things evolve, but we'll be here all night tracking it for you, and we'll start early tomorrow morning as well as we keep you updated on what's happening.
All right, Peyton.
Brandon.
Thank you, good sir. Peyton, while we got you up there, just got a couple questions for you. I know when we were looking at this, taking a look at, where it was coming and kind of hugging the coast there and a lack of wind for it to develop any larger. Is that still the case here, what you're seeing?
Yeah, it is. Okay, and I could tell by looking at it this morning, just the structure of the storm, Brandon, it's got a ton of wind shear. So the center's here, and whenever there's a side that has nothing on it, that means the wind shear is still pushing on it. So it's got wind shear, and it's got a limited time over water. I mean, it's basically already hugging the coast, which means it's probably not going to really intensify anymore. And we're probably at the maximum intensification of this for today, Brandon. And even by tonight, this thing will move inland, and that'll completely cap off the winds getting any stronger.
Oh, that is the good news. Yeah. Also, looking at that map, you've got that white dotted line that you showed us a couple minutes ago, some parts of our area, Hammond, Hattiesburg, Macomb. I do want to ask you about southern Mississippi because they're already dealing with flooding there from rain this week, and then you had the swollen rivers. What is the concern, if any, about what folks should be worried about up there? The
North Shore and specifically South Mississippi has a high flood risk as well. We were talking yesterday, me and you off cam, about how parts of these areas have picked up 30 and 40 inches of rain over the past month and a half. They got big time rains yesterday in Picayune, so any extra rain is going to lead to flooding. And you saw it yesterday with the pop-up storms that even those little storms produce significant rainfall. So the flooding risk is still very high over in South Mississippi. Brandon, I want to quickly get to a graphic that I just created, and I have to go find it, but it has to do with our river flooding. And we do have some impressive river flooding forecast that's going to happen over in South Mississippi. And so when we're talking about the rivers, the Hobola-Chitta River that was near Picayune, it's forecasted to crest in major flood stage in the next day or day and a half. So that's going to lead to some major river flooding or creek flooding there. All of our rivers on the North Shore right now are expected to crest in minor flood stage. That's with the forecast currently. Now, we got to take these river forecasts really hourly hourly and day by day to see how much rain falls and where it falls. But we do have our North Shore rivers going into minor flood stage here in the next 24 hours, whereas the Mississippi rivers and creeks are looking like they're going to be even higher, Brandon, as we go through the next couple of days.
All right, meteorologist Peyton Malone standing by with the very latest there on what is now Tropical Storm Arthur. We're going to give Peyton a couple seconds here to just gather his bearings here because he is walking us through the very latest as he gets it. But again, as Peyton is saying, wind shear, our friend in this case, because he doesn't expect the system to develop any larger here as it does make its way here throughout southeastern Louisiana. While we're at it here, 10:14 the time if you are just joining us as we do continue our special. Arthur, want to catch you up on the roads. Here's Leah McNeil.
Well, right now, Brandon, we are doing just fine. We have a few showers out there, but regardless, we did have a ton of rain over the last 48 hours, so the roads are slick. You definitely want to give yourself some extra time if you have to head out today or especially tomorrow morning. Okay, we are under a flood watch through Friday, as Peyton has been mentioning, so the potential for street flooding is definitely there. As always, this is not anything that we have not seen before, so never drive through those flooded streets. We know where these flooded spots are, so don't even take the chance and do it. You could get yourself in danger and, of course, damage your vehicle. Also in effect until Friday morning is that neutral ground parking for those of you in the city of New Orleans. We all deal with this. We know the routine, so do not park on any streetcar tracks. Don't block anybody's driveway. Don't block any sidewalks. Same routine that we always do, just continue to do it. So again, Brandon, that will be in effect until Friday morning for those of you who have to get out and about on the roads.
Neil keeping us posted on current street levels, but also just reminding you that tomorrow you might run into some issues as we do get set for this system to move through the area here. We're set to get more information from officials in the city of New Orleans on what the plan is. They've got a news conference slated for this afternoon, so we will get that to you once they do get that going. But what we do know from the city of New Orleans is right now sandbags are available for filling. Here is that list, and they do reflect each of the city council districts. Started at 9:30 this morning, and they will be available as supplies last. Now, there is an exception here in terms of who is available or where is an available location now, and that's the lower 9th Ward. The Sanchez Center is where they will be able to fill up those sandbags, but they're not doing so until noon. That is the exception there. Other parishes, too, about which to tell you. Got that for you at the ready on WWLTV.com. 10:17 on this Wednesday morning as we do keep you up to the very latest as we do track what is the latest here. Now Tropical Storm Arthur, meteorologist Peyton Malone, traffic anchor Leah McNeil here with me to make sure that you get what you need to know as we do track the first named storm of this season. With that, we've got officials reminding you that it's not about scaring you, but a good reminder to take some steps as we are in the midst of hurricane season. So with that, you got some time. Get out there, clear debris from your storm drains in front of your house. Go help your neighbor. Walk down the street and do that too, because that is a concern. We've talked a lot about that. In fact, this week, catching up with officials from the Sewage and Water Board who tell us that they have cleared over 2,000 catch bases in the city of New Orleans. So that's progress. We can all do our part. Also, if you've got loose furniture items, patio items and whatnot that may be outside, even wayward garbage cans, make sure that they are secured because you never know just how heavy winds will be, and avoid placing any yard debris. Once you do clean up anything, it could get into the drainage and block it there. So just so you know that. And again, these are customary tips that do come about whenever there is the threat of bad weather here in southeastern Louisiana. But as Peyton has mentioned, this system is bound to be one of heavy rain. So with that, it's also a reminder to pull out your insurance policy, take a closer look at it. Leah McNeil did have the chance to speak to a local insurance expert, and she's got those tips for us, Leah.
Yeah, Brandon, all things that we're unfortunately used to doing here, but just serving as a reminder for you. I talked to Ross Shales. He's with the local insurance company, Expert Insurance LLC. He says whenever it comes to flood insurance for your home, it's just not something you can get at the last minute. But if you do have flood coverage, now is a good time to find your declarations page and make sure you understand exactly what is covered, especially when it comes to those personal belongings inside your home. You also don't want to forget about your vehicle.
For a lot of people, just concentrate on vehicles. Get that vehicle to a high spot. And another thing to consider, I think it's important, is inexperienced drivers or at-risk drivers.
Now, Shales encourages everyone to stay off the roads to avoid getting stuck in any potential flooded waters. As you heard him say there, especially those inexperienced drivers. When it comes to those claims around this time where we do have flooded waters, he says that's the claims that they typically get the most of from those inexperienced drivers. Now, as far as the insurance goes for your car, he says that if your car is damaged by any flood waters, it's usually going to be covered under your comprehensive coverage and not liability. So be sure you know exactly how much your policy covers on that front. If you don't have any flood insurance for your home and you are interested, Shales says that more private flood insurers are actually starting to write policies here in Louisiana, more policies through the National Flood Insurance Program. So he says rates are competitive, might be something to definitely look at as we get past this rain event, Brandon.
Yeah, that is some good advice, not only this time of year as we are in hurricane season, but all year, especially considering the challenge that so many of us in southeastern Louisiana face in keeping a nice, decent insurance rate, which is impossible for many of us here. We do want to let you know that we will continue to update you right here on WWL, our many platforms. A reminder for you, take out that phone, download the WWL app. If you don't have it, it's free, and you can watch what we have to report for you, the very latest on what is now officially Tropical Storm Arthur, either on your phone or your TV for free. The very latest right here on WWL Louisiana throughout the day. Until then, I'm Brandon Walker. Good morning.